What is going on, everyone? It's your guy Cole Jackson back here on Road Graders, coming to you with an episode updating you on the Baltimore Ravens depth chart. We are through the first full phase. We're probably into a bit of the second phase of the free agency period, and the Ravens have made a few moves, solidified kind of their lineup for right now. I don't expect anything significant to happen between now and the draft. There might be a minor depth type signing, but we're kind of through that first phase, and the Ravens usually are the type of team that addresses early holes, tries to go into the draft with as few holes as possible, and we're going to take a look at where they did that and where they're still looking to do that. And then they wait till after the draft, because then the compensatory pick period is ended. So for example, if they were to sign a guy like Stephon Gilmore, it's probably going to impact the comp pick scenario, but if it's after the draft, it won't. So I want to go through the depth chart, kind of take a look at where we're at after the first, big round of free agency, and really talk about what the updated team needs are, where the Ravens will need to address, and kind of start to get ready for that. Because again, I don't expect anything between now and the draft besides maybe a vet corner if it's a really cheap one, someone like a vet depth linebacker that could be kind of that special teamer CJ Board type guy. So let's dive into it. Let's get the depth chart up here, starting on offense. And what really stands out the most on the offense is the fact that they've just kind of firmed up most of their starters. Like, really what we're looking at now is addressing competition at the guard position and adding another wide receiver. But, really it's the O-line left to get addressed. As you can see, well, let's go position by position. Starting here with the quarterback position, they brought in Cooper Rush, a move that I definitely wasn't expecting. I do think, obviously, with Devin Leary or, bringing back Josh Johnson being the backup quarterback situation, they could certainly use an upgrade there. I thought Cooper Rush was an interesting move because the big thing about Rush to me is when he gets in the game, he did have some fumbling issues last year, but when he gets in the game, he protects the ball in the air pretty well. And what we need from a backup quarterback, not just us, the Ravens, but teams in general, what they really want is someone that can come in and just be a game manager, right? That's one thing that I thought Tyler Huntley did decently well as a Baltimore Raven, minus trying to QB sneak it from 3 yards out. And I think Cooper Rush was a good guy to bring in and just provide that backup to Lamar Jackson. The nice thing about Todd Monken's offense, there's really no need for a mobile quarterback. This is a drop back passing offense. The option run game is not the central focus of the run game anymore. It's that zone rush attack with Derrick Henry. So I think that's a nice addition to kind of bring in someone that could, if Lamar has to miss part of a game or get us through a couple games, I think Cooper Rush can step in and manage the game if we have a good O-line and Derrick Henry running the rock. Moving on, running back position, Keaton Mitchell coming back. It's not a free agent addition. Obviously, he was around at the end of last year, but I think not enough people are talking about getting back a healthy Keaton Mitchell. We've seen a lot of guys struggle to come back from ACLs. Most notably, J.K. Dobbins took a while. Keaton Mitchell wasn't himself when he had returned last year. He looked skittish, especially on some of those return opportunities. He is now going to be what I would call healthy going into this. So adding that into that, RB2 situation with Justice Hill, really nice 1-2-3 punch here. Rasheen Ali will kind of work as the fourth. They may add a rookie. I don't think Rasheen Ali showed me anything to make him, have a locked in spot. So with 11 picks, if the Ravens don't trade up at any point and keep them, one of the 11 picks could certainly be a running back, especially with the lack of needs elsewhere. So definitely a spot they could go, but not necessarily a must. It would need to be a BPA situation. So the running back room feels pretty good. Tight end room, very good. Mark Andrews roster bonus kicked in. They paid him a $4 million roster bonus. I don't expect them to trade him now. It'd be kind of surprising, but if I learned anything from the Marquise Brown trade, anything can happen at any point. So, I doubt it now because they did pay that $4 million out, but never say never. Certainly possible, but the tight end room is stacked. No need to be investing there. It's kind of locked in. Wide receiver room. If you go back to the first episode I did on this, it was scary because they only had Zay Bateman and Tez Walker on the depth chart. And then obviously the addition of DeAndre Hopkins rounding out that top 3 wide receiver group definitely makes me think they won't go there early. But Rashad Bateman's going to be a free agent soon. Zay Flowers is going to need a contract. Nuke is only, a 1-year deal. So again, it's similar to the running back situation where if it's a BPA move, why not? Like, why not kind of future proof there? Just probably not in the first 2 rounds, maybe in the third round. But, as a 4th-round pick, adding another guy that could be developing, I don't think it's a bad move necessarily. Just depends on, that BPA formula. Obviously, they brought back Tylan Wallace to be that kind of key special teamer. So I like the way this group is, rounded out. They have a top 3 that I think is a very good top 3 with complementary skill sets. You got the big body X receiver that can ISO and DeAndre Hopkins. You got Zay that can do everything in all 4 levels. And you got Rashad Bateman, who has become a bit of a touchdown magnet. It really showed some of that big playability. Just his hands stink. I can't figure out his hands. He's got bad hand technique, and, even his catches almost look like drops. So we'll kind of see how that plays out. Obviously, you guys subscribe to Road Graders for the O-line analysis, so I'll probably spend a little bit of time here. And, the O-line is a tough one for me. I haven't hid my feelings for Daniel Faalele. Here's my thing. I would upgrade Daniel Faalele. So if the answer is would you, the answer would be yes, absolutely. I didn't see enough from him to give him a locked-in right guard spot. Everybody always asks me why. It's become a contentious topic for some reason. I think the film's very clear on Daniel Faalele. Did he get better through last year? Yes. Did he get to a starting caliber? Below average starting caliber, but probably starting caliber, to be fair. My argument against Daniel Faalele doesn't come from a place of hate. I don't hate any of these guys. If you go back and watch my pre-draft stuff, I wanted Faalele here, and that's because this was a Greg Roman run scheme. He is a power gap scheme guard or tackle. I loved him as a right tackle option, down blocking on powers and Greg Roman's scheme. I thought it was a great fit. Todd Monken comes in, wants to install more of a zone-based offense that gets the ball out in space. That's what Derrick Henry does so well. That's what we see from our tackles. We have athletic guys. Basically, my argument is our core building blocks on this line are our left tackle, center, and right tackle, all schematic fits for a zone scheme. And then we put in a 6'8", 380-pound guy that can't play in space. That doesn't make sense. So is it to the point where they need to spend an early draft pick there? No, not necessarily. They need to address, as you can see from the X's underneath left tackle and right tackle, they need to address their depth at tackle. We have our starters in Ronnie Stanley and Roger Rosengarten, who I think can be a top 5 tackle duo, especially as a pass protecting unit. I really think they have that potential, but they need depth behind them. So I would be investing in college football tackles that have that tackle ability that could also come in and compete at guard. The Ravens love to develop that versatility, so go out and get a couple of those guys. Early, that could be guys like Donovan Jackson out of Ohio State, could be Wyatt Malum out of West Virginia, could be Charles Grant out of William and Mary. 3 guys that kind of fit that mold that I think could do that right away. So that's how I view the Daniel Faalele situation. Do you need to? No. Should you? In my opinion, yes. He doesn't fit the scheme. Now, flip over to Andrew Voorhees. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see Andrew Voorhees a ton last year. And I thought the biggest, to compare, you look at Roger Rosengarten, had his lumps, right? After that Bengals game, had a series of games, really struggled against the Commanders, really struggled against, can't remember the other team. It was right after that. So he took his lumps as a rookie, but we saw him build and build and build and build. Andrew Voorhees didn't get that opportunity, got hurt. Patrick McCarry took over, and Patrick McCarry didn't let go of the job. We saw him come in week 18. I'll drop a link down below to my film breakdown if you guys want to go back and rewatch that. He looked like a completely different player. So my issue is I don't have the sample to stack up, because offensive line play is all about consistency. You can go out and have a dominant game and then 3 stinkers, and that isn't, it's not going to work for an offensive line group. You need consistency out of all 5 guys. So my issue is I just haven't seen the sample size to be able to say Voorhees is locked. So again, this adding one of those high level tackles that could slide inside to guard, providing that depth outside while also competing to start inside, is for left guard and right guard. So I'd be focusing at least 3 draft picks. And I mean, re-signing Ben Cleveland, he doesn't have a lock spot by any means on my team. So, he's there. It was a very minimum deal, very little cap hit. So if he gets cut because someone beats him out, whatever. So I would still be bringing in 3 guys, 2 of which are true tackles, I need a true swing tackle in here developing, a mid-round guy, a Jack Nelson type cat that can come in and just kind of be that. But then I need an early pick on the offensive line that has tackle ability but can slide inside and compete day one to start at guard from either Andrew Voorhees or Daniel Falele. Give it an honest competition and let the cream rise to the top. That's how I'd round out this offense. I think overall going into the draft, we're in a very good position. Running back and wide receiver are the only two spots outside of the O-line I can see picks being made, and it's really purely BPA situations. Doesn't need to be a pick because, even for that wide receiver 6 spot, you got Anthony Miller, you got that cat that was really Dayton Wade that was really solid in preseason last year. Keith Kirkwood will be back. Malik Cunningham will be back as kind of special team guys. They could be that wide receiver 6, not a big deal. So you don't need to, but you could if it's BPA. Same thing for running back. But offensive line, definitely need to bring in some competition. Switching over to the defensive side of the ball, the retirement of Michael Pierce was a bit of a big one to me because you can look at the 1 tech and 3 tech interior defensive line spots, and let's actually start there. We're thin. Yeah, we don't have the bodies. There's 3 guys returning from last year. They have guys like CJ Ravenel, Adeo Odalai, who's coming back to compete, but probably not guys that you want on your 53-man roster. So now there's a need for a backup 1 tech. For me, this is I'll kind of blend these conversations together. The biggest need for me at the interior defensive line is that situational pass rusher. So if you go look at a model like what the Philadelphia Eagles had, why wouldn't we want to replicate that? They had Jordan Davis as that early, 1 tech, which is kind of that Travis Jones type role. Jones obviously more upside as a pass rusher, but then when they wanted to get into their sub packages, they would have Jalen Carter as their 3 tech, or they'd move him into the 2I, and then they'd bring in Milton Williams. And that's what we're missing, is that Milton Williams type skill set, situational pass rusher that can spell out Travis Jones. Preserve the 1 tech, take the 1 tech out and get kind of 2 defensive tackles, 2 3 techs, 2 2Is. And what that does is it forces the center to slide to one side and guarantees you a one-on-one against the guard in space. When you have that 1 tech, it's going to draw that attention, or it's going to be an easier slide for the center to take that over, and you're getting less athleticism. What the Eagles did so well is they had 4 guys juiced up, ready to rush the passer on any passing down. And that's what the Ravens need to get to, and that's why I think interior defensive line is a much bigger need than people are making out to be. Early round guys like Derek Harmon would be the perfect type of guy. Guys that don't necessarily, they're not studs against the run, but when it's 3rd and 10, we can get Matabike and Harmon out there or something like that. Walter Nolan being another guy like that. So they're not necessarily bad against the run, but they excel against the pass. That to me is a big need. Now, the 1 tech spot, we're going to have to bring in someone to be that depth piece to Travis Jones. We saw him get hurt last year. Pierce was hurt last year. It was a bit of a nightmare. They had, name's escaping me. Can't think of the guy that he was a 1 tech that came from Houston. Anyway, one thing they could do is draft, obviously. And again, that's another, one of those 6-round picks, bring in a 2-gapping 1 tech, and it's fine. Or they find a vet off the street. They can kind of come in and just be a run stuffer as a 1 tech. We're going to see a downgrade there regardless, because I don't want to justify an early draft pick as a nose tackle. I don't see the value in it. We're not going to get the pass rush upside. And that's what I think they need to address this interior defensive line group. So 2 picks definitely there, or a pick and a vet, bringing in, a run stuffing 2-gapper 1 tech, and then a juiced up pass rusher for the 3 tech that would kind of move Broderick Washington down and give us that kind of 3rd defensive tackle in the game. Moving out to the outside linebacker position, obviously, going in with Odafe Owe and Kyle Van Noy as your 2 starters, not a bad situation. We haven't really seen anything out of Adisa Isaac. Nobody really loved the pick. I was kind of mum on it, liked the tape a little bit out of Penn State, but we didn't really get to see anything. David Ojabo hasn't shown us anything at the NFL level. Has had some flashes, but there's no consistency there. I obviously there's a path to him being successful, but I just haven't seen it to not make a move there. So it really becomes tough because Owe and Van Noy, theoretically 2 double-digit sack guys, but 2 guys that were also outside the top 30 among edge rushers and pass rush win rate, very inefficient. So edge is still a need. But for me to address the edge position, it's kind of a weird take, because either I'm addressing it early first or second round, or I'm probably not addressing it at all because I'm just going to get another guy that's similar to Atavius Robinson and Adisa Isaac. And then it's like, what, like, you know, I can justify it, but it's not a huge need for me. So I want to see them make that pick early. That's kind of my argument. First two picks, being an edge rusher makes complete sense to me. Obviously, Tavius Robinson, I don't want to not touch on. Liked some of what I saw, just not that kind of juiced up guy. He's the kind of guy that I can see starting a game and being that kind of, early down edge setter, Courtney Upshaw style, that could also slide inside and play a little bit of that kind of four eye tech pass rush situation to give you another body. But I just don't see him as a true outside rusher. He had like a 4.6% pass rush win rate. It was very low. Still had some flashes, which is good, but he just doesn't have that juice outside. So unless we see a little bit more development there, I just see him as more of that early run stopper at the edge position that could also slide in and provide a little bit of interior pass rush. So really going to be interesting to see what they do here because I can't figure out what to do with Ojabo and Isaac. Like there's potential there, but I haven't seen anything to, be excited. Moving into the cornerback spot, this one is an interesting one because every time I talk about corner, people reply to me and they say, you forgot about TJ Tampa. Trust me, I didn't forget about TJ Tampa. He has 18 defensive snaps. I just haven't seen film to be like, yeah, he can start. So it's an interesting spot because like I'll blend in safety a little bit with this, obviously lighting up the safety spot there because the way they use Kyle Hamilton and Ardarius Washington, these are pretty interchangeable because it's going to be really interesting what they do with Marlon Humphrey. They could invest in a slot corner, move Marlon Humphrey back outside, and there's your three starters. There's also a situation where they bring in a safety. They bring in, an Emanwari, a Malachi Starks, and move Marlon Humphrey back outside, moving Kyle Hamilton into the slot or Darius in the slot, and using that three safety approach that we saw 2 years ago, a little bit last year, but mostly 2 years ago. So there's options in how they want to address this, but the big need being they need depth at outside corner. They only have Nate Wiggins, TJ Tampa, and Jalen Armour Davis. Marlon Humphrey obviously can do it, but then they have a need at slot corner. If it's one of the safeties moving there, then they have a need at safety. So those are the kind of the multiple spots. Basically, you need to bring in at least 3 DBs in the draft. So 3 offensive linemen, 3 DBs, 2 defensive tackles. You can see how this is going to be one of those drafts really focused on a few positions and building out the depth there. What's going to be interesting is how they do it. Obviously, this is not a deep corner class. A guy like Trey Amos, I like a lot more. I could take him at 27 and be happy about it. Would the Ravens go corner back to back? That's what I'm interested in. They could also bring in a safety, but then, you're spending a first on a safety. You're about to pay Kyle Hamilton a boatload of money. They're paying a ton to Marlon Humphrey. So it's really going to be interesting what they do. So I'll be interested to read the comments and see what you guys think they should be doing. Personally, I'm focusing on bringing in an outside corner. That would be my focus. And I'd actually do it through a vet. I'd try and get a Stephon Gilmore in here, and then I'd add some depth behind him and draft a safety because I want the Ravens to have that flexibility to be able to move Kyle Hamilton around and still be able to have their safeties in their group to feel comfortable in doing so. Last year, once they addressed the safety spot by moving Kyle Hamilton more into a split safety role with Washington, after getting rid of Marcus Williams, they didn't have another safety off the bench to move Kyle Hamilton around as much as they wanted to. It worked out okay for the defense, but I want them to have that flexibility. Then finishing up linebacker position, this is going to be an interesting one because I don't trust Trent Simpson, and I don't think any of you do either. So how they address this is going to be very interesting because I don't see how they're able to draft a linebacker in the first 4 rounds, and I'm not sure how much a 5th rounder outside of special teams is going to be able to contribute to, the starting spot beside Roquan. So I would have liked to have seen CJ Board brought back just to give us that kind of insurance. They brought in Jake Hummel, who is a key special teamer. I'm not sure how much he'll be able to contribute to the will spot, but I would like to see them, address this at some point. Again, I'm just not sure they have the draft capital early in the draft to address everything because I want to see them get a corner, an outside linebacker, an interior defensive lineman, some O-line picks, and, they only have 4 picks in the 5 picks, in the first 4 rounds. So how are they going to be able to address all that? It's just tough to see a linebacker fitting into this. Could they go early if a Jahad Campbell drops? Could they, reach on a guy. I wouldn't like to see it. So be really interesting to see how they address that spot. So the big thing I want to know from you guys, drop a comment down below. What is the biggest need you guys see? Drop a comment, hit that like button if you enjoyed this breakdown. Hit subscribe if you're new here. Be good to yourselves, be good to each other. Peace out, everyone.